All right, ready for another deep dive. Today, we're heading to Minnesota's Lake Country.
Lake country. You mean
Glendalough State Park, yeah.
beautiful area.
It really is. Almost 2,000 acres of land, another 1,000 covered in water. And get this, a history that involves presidents.
Presidents at Glendalough.
Oh, yeah. Newspaper tycoons, artists, the whole deal. We're going beyond the basics today, ready to uncover the woe of Glendalough.
I am all ears, especially if we're talking about those presidents. Glendalough always strikes me as a place full of surprises. You think it's just about the views, then bam, you learn about the people, the stories, and it's like a whole different place.
Right. And speaking of stories, it's not just one type of history here. You've got the glaciers, right? Carving out the landscape, creating those kettle lakes and prairies.
Classic Glendalough scenery.
Exactly. But then there's this more recent history. The Cowles family, the folks behind the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
Ugh. The Cowles family, now their influence on Glendalough is fascinating. They basically shaped it into the retreat it is today, even hosted people like President Eisenhower, Nixon. Imagine those conversations happening against that backdrop.
Makes you wonder, what were they thinking as they walked those same trails? Did those peaceful surroundings spark any big decisions?
We can only speculate, but it's a captivating thought.
It really is. And it wasn't just presidents. Glendalough inspired artists, too. There was this wildlife artist, Les Cuba, who was so drawn to a place called Heath's Resort, which used to be within the park.
Heath's Resort. Interesting.
Yeah, he even dedicated a whole series of paintings to it.
Wow, I must have really left a mark on him.
Speaking of art, have you seen pictures of the park in the winter? Incredible, especially with those yurts nestled into the snow.
Oh yeah, the yurts. I can see the appeal, experiencing the beauty of the park in a whole new way. It speaks to Glendalough's versatility, something for everyone.
Totally. And speaking of different facets, for those who like to hike, there's the Bluff Trail with those amazing views. Or the Inspiration Trail if you're feeling ambitious.
And if you're more like me, drawn to the water, picture yourself on Heritage Lake. No motors allowed, just peace and quiet. Whether you're fishing or just enjoying the view, it's the perfect spot to unwind.
It sounds idyllic. And this is where the story takes a turn. Remember how we talked about the Cowles family shaping the park? Their legacy goes beyond those presidents and inspiring artists.
Oh.
They ended up donating the land.
Donated it?
Yep, made it a public park so everyone could experience it.
That is incredible. What a legacy, making that kind of commitment to conservation, to sharing this amazing place.
Right. Talk about a love for the area. But I'm curious, what's resonating most with you so far? The history, the activities, the presidents?
It's a lot to unpack, right? Tough to pick just one thing, honestly. The history is fascinating, for sure, especially that Cowles family legacy. But the ecosystem, that's what really gets me. Yeah. It's built on old glacial terrain, shaped by those massive ice formations from way back when. And that's a whole other level, I think.
Like stepping back in time.
Yeah.
We talked about those kettle lakes and prairies before, but what about the plants and animals that call this place home? Any standouts?
Oh, tons. The diversity is amazing. There are even whole areas dedicated to prairie restoration.
Restoration?
Bringing back those native plants. Big blue stem is a star there. You'll see them towering over everything with those feathery plumes. Oh, and past flowers. Early spring, they add these pops of color. Really pretty.
Incredible how they've adapted to that environment, all thanks to glaciers from so long ago. Speaking of adapting, what about the wildlife? Got any interesting characters living there?
Are you kidding? You might even spot a bald eagle soaring around.
No way.
Or maybe an osprey diving for fish.
Those are some bucket list sightings. Okay, gotta ask. Any chance of a moose? I know, probably not common.
Moose sightings are definitely rare there. But hey, never say never, right? Even without moose, you've got white-tailed deer all over. And if you're lucky, playful river otters by the water.
See, I like that you mentioned the smaller guys, too.
Yeah.
Easy to get caught up in the big stuff, but there's a whole other world hopping around down there.
Totally agree. And don't forget the soundtrack. Glendalough is full of bird songs, chirps, melodies, the works. You'll hear wood ducks. They've got that colorful plumage. Oh. And if you hear a weird call, almost comical, that might be a pied-billed grebe.
A what?
Pied-billed grebe. They're these birds, kind of disappear and reappear like magic.
Sounds like every sense is engaged at Glendalough. The views, the sounds. You mentioned those winter yurts. Imagine being nestled up in one, snow falling outside, and then in the distance, an owl.
Now that is the dream. And you're right, winter totally changes the park, not just the colors and wildlife, but the whole vibe, embracing that quiet beauty.
It really does sound like a completely different experience depending on when you go. You've given us so much to think about the Cowles family, the presidents who visited, the ecosystem. It's more than just a park.
Definitely. And I think that's what's so cool about places like this. Glendalough, it reminds us that history isn't just stuck in books or museums.
It's alive.
Yeah, woven into the landscape, waiting for us to discover it, reinterpret it.
So true. Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, one last question for you, and for our listeners too.
Yeah.
Think about everything we've discussed, the Cowles family, those presidents walking the trails, everything that lives there. What kind of experience would you create for yourself at Glendalough?
Ooh, that's a good one for me. It'd be about balance, I think. I'd want that challenge of a hike, see those amazing views, but also time by the lake, just to think. Maybe try to actually identify some of those bird calls. Really experience all those layers.
Love that. It really goes to show Glendalough has something for everyone. Whether you're looking for adventure or peace, little history, or just that connection with nature, this park seems to have it all.
I think so. And who knows, maybe someone listening will be inspired. Pick up a paintbrush like Les Cuba, right? Or even add their own chapter to the Glendalough story.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
And if you do find yourselves out at Glendalough, we want to hear about it. Share those photos, the stories, anything that leaves you speechless. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.